The Haunted Grove. In the small town of Eldermore, whispers of an ancient curse echoed through the streets, but it was the grove at the edge of town that held the deepest secrets. Locals warned against venturing into the twisted trees that loomed like sentinels, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The Grove of Lament had borne the weight of sorrow for centuries, and those who entered rarely returned the same. 16-year-old Mia Winters had always been a curious soul. The tales her grandmother told were more like Aesop's fables to her, harmless stories with a moral that rarely dissuaded her from digging deeper. But this was different. This curse was more than just an old wives' tale. It was an ominous presence that hung over the grove like a thick fog, and Mia found herself inexplicably drawn to it. One chilly autumn evening, armed with only her flashlight and a journal, Mia made her way to the edge of the grove. As she stepped beyond the boundary marked by a tangle of thorns, a shiver danced down her spine. The air grew colder, and an eerie silence enveloped the area, only broken by the distant rustling of leaves. The further she walked, the starker the landscape became. The trees twisted in bizarre shapes, almost as if they were trying to escape an invisible bond that held them captive. An unsettling groan resounded through the air, causing Mia's heart to race. She jotted down her thoughts, convinced that the secrets of the grove were waiting to be uncovered. Hours slipped by, and the last rays of sunlight began to fade behind the horizon, casting long shadows that threatened to swallow her whole. Just as she considered turning back, Mia stumbled upon a clearing. In its center lay a stone altar, ancient and covered in a thick layer of moss. Something urged her to approach it. Perhaps it was the pull of her curiosity, or perhaps the whispers of those lost before her. As she laid her hand on the altar, a surge of energy coursed through her body. Visions flooded her mind. Images of those who had ventured into the grove before, their faces twisted in agony, their cries resonating in her ears. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath her feet, and the trees around her stirred as if awakened from a deep slumber. Before she could react, a shadow emerged from within the grove, dark and horrific. It was a creature woven from the very essence of the curse, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. It bore memories of the lost, silhouettes trapped in its flesh that were tangled in its limbs. They reached out to Mia, their mouths moving silently, begging for release. She recoiled instinctively, her mind racing with thoughts of escape. "Leave this place," the creature growled, its voice echoing like thunder. "You, like the others, seek what should remain buried. This grove demands a price." In a panic, Mia turned to flee, colliding with the trees that felt far more alive than before. The branches darted out, clawing at her, their sharp edges like talons seeking to ensnare her. The whispers grew louder, decipherable now, pleading for her to understand, begging her to warn others. "Don't become one of us," they cried. Adrenaline surged through her veins as she raced through the twisted paths, heart pounding like a drum. As she neared the entrance, the creature let out a furious howl, and the earth trembled again. The cursed grove seemed to shift, trapping her in an ever-tightening maze. Just as her hope began to fade, Mia remembered her grandmother's stories, the tales of light conquering dark. Drawing on every ounce of courage, she retrieved her flashlight and pointed the beam toward the tangled darkness that threatened to suffocate her. The light erupted like a beacon, pushing the shadows back, and the creature recoiled, pain etched across its grotesque face. With a final surge of energy, Mia broke free of the grove's boundaries, stumbling onto the familiar ground of her town. Each gasping breath felt like a victory, but as she glanced back, the forest gulped at the light, quickly engulfing it in shadows once more. Though she escaped, Mia knew the curse of the Grove of Lament was not broken. The creature would still lurk in the depths, waiting for the next unwitting soul to stumble into its grasp. And from that day forward, she made it her mission to share her tale, determined to warn others. The stories of the cursed creature areas would flow from her lips like a river, so others would heed the warnings, remaining forever outside the reach of darkness. But as she stood there, she couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching her from within the grove, and a whisper that replayed in her mind. "You cannot escape forever."